Stand behind me.
Who are you?
Stop her! Somebody stop that woman! 90,000 people turned their heads at the same time. It was the 89th minute of a World Cup knockout match. The score was 2-1. The whole stadium was one held breath. And then security officers came sprinting along the edge of the pitch, radios screaming, and every camera in the building swung away from the ball and found her. A young black woman, 24 years old, curly black hair pulled up in a high ponytail with loose spirals falling around her face, gold hoops in her ears, a white USA jersey with a red number 10 on it, and pure animal panic in her eyes as she ran along the touchline clutching a battered old camera to her chest like it was a child. Her name was Cora Daniels. 60 seconds ago, she'd been a credentialed sports photographer. Now the giant stadium screen, the one built to show goals and replays and kiss cams, flashed her face, 30 feet tall, above 4 words that ended her life in real time. Suspected match saboteur. The sound that came out of 90,000 throats at once was not human. It was weather, a storm of booing that rolled down from the upper decks and broke over one terrified woman. And then the objects started. Plastic cups, food, coins, a scarf, everything raining down as she stumbled and fell to her knees on the grass in front of the whole world, her father's camera skidding out of her hands. "I didn't do anything," she screamed, and the crowd screamed louder. "Please, I didn't do anything." Nobody listened. 90,000 people had already decided. The commentators were saying her name. Phones were recording from every angle. Somewhere, her mother was watching this on television. Security closed in from 3 sides. Cora pressed her back against the advertising boards, cornered, sobbing, 12 hours into the worst day of her life. And that's when a man wearing a black Korea jersey number 7 walked out of the players' tunnel and onto the pitch like the stadium belonged to him. The crowd assumed he was security. He wasn't walking like security. Security hurries. This man moved like the outcome had already been decided, and he was just arriving to read the verdict. Tall, unhurried, jet-black hair falling over dangerous dark eyes, intricate tattoos climbing up the side of his neck above the jersey collar, a silver cross swinging against his chest. He stepped directly between Cora and the advancing guards. He looked at her, kneeling, tear-streaked, camera in the grass, and he took off his sunglasses, and up close, his face was almost unfairly beautiful, and his eyes were the coldest thing in a stadium of 90,000 people. "Stand behind me," he said quietly. Who are you?" Cora whispered. The lead security officer grabbed for her arm. The man in the black number 7 jersey caught the officer's wrist without even looking at him, and held it there, and something in the grip made a grown man in a stab vest go completely white. "I won't repeat myself twice in 1 minute," the man said to everyone, to no one. "She's under my protection." 90,000 people had no idea what that meant. But up in the glass, VIP boxes, a handful of very rich, very dangerous men went very, very still. Because every criminal in that stadium knew exactly whose face they were looking at. Quick pause. Subscribe and ring the bell. Because this is the full story in one video, no part 2, and you need to see how a sports photographer ended up hunted by a trafficking syndicate and protected by the most feared mafia boss in Korea. Now let's rewind 12 hours to the morning this all started, the best morning of Cora Daniels' life. 12 hours earlier, Cora Daniels woke up in a budget hotel 11 kilometers from the stadium and lay there for a full minute, grinning at the ceiling like a lunatic. Let me tell you who this woman was, because the world was about to get her so wrong. Cora was 24, Nigerian-American, raised in Houston by a father who fixed cars 6 days a week and loved 2 things without limit, his daughter and football. Real football. He'd grown up in Lagos playing barefoot with a ball made of rags, and he'd carried the World Cup inside him his whole life, like other men carry religion. Every 4 years, the Daniels' living room became a stadium. He'd sit Cora on his knee and narrate matches like scripture. And he had one dream he repeated so often. It became family furniture. One day, Cora, one day we'll be in that stadium, not watching through a screen, breathing the same air as the game. He never got there. A heart attack took him on a Tuesday in the garage, wrench still in his hand when Cora was 19. What he left her, besides a hole in the world, was his camera. An old, heavy, unfashionable DSLR he'd saved 8 months to buy, because his second dream, the quieter one, was that his daughter had an eye. "You see moments, Cora," he used to say. "Everybody else sees things. You see moments." She'd carried that camera ever since, through community college, through years of shooting high school games for gas money, weddings for rent, being the only black woman on sidelines full of men with equipment worth more than her car who looked through her like glass. She'd carried it while she built a portfolio, one underpaid gig at a time, and she'd carried it when she entered an international sports photography competition on a 2 a.m. whim, submitting a single shot, a photo of a youth league kid crying into his goalkeeper gloves after a loss, his tiny teammates lining up to hug him one by one. She titled it, "The Game My Father Taught Me." It won. Out of 19,000 entries from 90 countries, it won. And the prize was the thing that made Cora Daniels sit down on her kitchen floor and sob. Full media credentials to the FIFA World Cup. A sideline pass. Her father's dream. 1 generation late. So that morning, in that budget hotel, Cora put on the white USA number 10 jersey she'd bought with her first paycheck. Her dad's number, the playmaker's number, the 10 sees the whole field, Cora. And she hung the battered old camera around her neck, and she pressed her forehead against it for a second the way you'd touch a gravestone. "Okay, Daddy," she whispered. "Let's go breathe the same air as the game." She had no idea she was 11 kilometers away from accidentally photographing an international crime syndicate and becoming the most hated woman in the world by sunset. The stadium, up close, made her cry. She let it. 90,000 seats rising into the sky like a cathedral, the grass so green it looked painted. Flags from 50 nations, drums already going 3 hours before kickoff, the air itself carbonated. Cora walked through the media entrance with her credentials around her neck and her father in her chest. And for a while she just shot. Fans in face paint, a grandmother in a hijab and a team scarf, 2 little boys in rival jerseys sharing a churro. Moments, she saw moments, and at 10:47 a.m., on the concourse outside the VIP hospitality wing, she saw one more. It didn't look like anything, that's the point. A silver-haired man in a beautiful suit laughing with sponsors near the glass atrium, light pouring down, banners overhead, visually gorgeous. And Cora raised the camera on instinct and took 3 frames of the composition. Suits, glass, sunlight, the World Cup trophy replica gleaming in its display case in the foreground. Click, click, click. She checked the screen, liked the middle frame, moved on, thought nothing of it, shot 400 more pictures that day. Here's what Cora Daniels did not see, and would not see until it was almost too late. In the background of that middle frame, small, incidental, tucked behind the silver-haired man, 2 men were making an exchange. A slim, black encrypted case passing from one hand to another, and reflected in the curved glass of the trophy display, warped but capturable, were things no one was ever supposed to record, faces that were never photographed, a license plate that shouldn't exist, documents changing hands. The silver-haired man in the beautiful suit was Ethan Crawford, CEO of Crown Hospitality, the company running every VIP suite, every private entrance, every luxury logistics channel in the tournament. Publicly, he was the smiling face of World Cup elegance, the man who fed champagne to presidents. Privately, Ethan Crawford was using the World Cup the way a virus uses a body. Under the cover of the world's biggest event, its diplomatic pouches, its unsearched VIP freight, its thousands of temporary staff visas, his network was moving dirty money, conflict diamonds, and, most monstrous of all, people. Human beings, trafficked through hospitality staffing channels, invisible inside the machinery of the world's happiest month. It was flawless. It had run through 2 tournaments already without a whisper. And a 24-year-old with her dead father's camera had just accidentally photographed the only physical evidence of it on Earth. Cora walked on, humming, shooting a mascot hugging a baby. The clock on her old life had about 4 hours left on it. Every disaster needs a door, and the door into Cora's life was a woman named Vanessa Blake. You'd know Vanessa if you scrolled sports content at all. 4.1 million followers, teeth like a toothpaste ad, sports media personality in her bio. Vanessa had built an empire on sideline selfies and manufactured access, and she had entered that same international photography competition Cora won, entered it loudly, publicly, with a countdown and a hashtag, because Vanessa collected credentials the way other people collect trophies. She lost to a nobody, to a Houston freelancer with 1,100 followers and a camera older than her career. Vanessa posted a gracious congratulation video that took her 9 takes to get the smile right, and she came to that World Cup carrying a hatred so pure it was almost professional. Because for people like Vanessa, the worst thing you can be shown is that the thing you perform, someone else actually is. Cora's 1,100 follower account had the one thing 4 million followers can't buy: an eye. And Vanessa knew it. So Vanessa did what Vanessa did best. She got close. All smiles. "Oh my God, you're the girl who won. We have to get content together." And Cora, kind, open, raised right, thrilled that anyone knew her name, let her close. They shot a selfie. They compared gear. And in the media lounge that afternoon, while Cora was called away to a mandatory briefing, she left her camera bag beside Vanessa for 4 minutes. 4 minutes. Vanessa hadn't planned anything bigger than sabotage. Copy the woman's card, leak her best shots before she could file them, watch a nobody get accused of being unoriginal, petty theft of a life's work, influencer stuff. She slipped Cora's backup memory card into her pocket, copied it to her laptop in a bathroom stall, and scrolled the day's photos looking for something to steal. And she stopped on frame 0847, the atrium, the suits, the glass. Vanessa Blake was vicious, not stupid. She zoomed in, because that's what a jealous rival does, hunts every frame for flaws, and she saw the case changing hands, and she saw the reflections in the trophy glass, and she didn't fully understand what she was looking at, except that it was something secret, something about the man who ran the VIP program. And Vanessa did the math of her whole soul in 1 second. She could take this to the media, or she could take it to Ethan Crawford and become invaluable to the most connected man in world sport. She chose the second one. Of course she did. She walked into the Crown Hospitality Suite that afternoon with her laptop and a smile, thinking she was buying herself a career. What she actually did was hand a death sentence with Cora Daniels' name on it to the head of a trafficking syndicate. Ethan Crawford looked at frame 0847 for 11 silent seconds. Then he smiled at Vanessa, warm, grateful, terrifying if she'd known how to read it, and said, "You did the right thing bringing this to me. We'll handle it quietly." The moment the door closed behind her, he turned to his head of security. "The photographer. Destroy her today. Not her body, her name. A dead girl becomes a story. A discredited girl becomes a punchline, and punchlines get deleted." He looked back at the frozen frame, at his own reflection caught in trophy glass. Take her credibility, her credentials, and that camera before the final whistle. What happened to Cora Daniels over the next 3 hours is the part of this story that should scare you, because it's the part that's real. Empires can't always kill you, but they can always delete you. It started as a whisper online at 2:14 p.m., an anonymous account posting a blurry video of suspicious behavior near the players' tunnel. A young black woman in a white USA jersey crouching by equipment cases. The video was Cora, obviously. Cora crouching to change a lens, doing her job. Cut, slowed, zoomed, and captioned, "Who is this woman and what is she planting?" By 2:40, 3 burner accounts with sudden mysterious reach were confirming she'd been flagged before. By 3:15, a fabricated document was circulating. A fake incident report with her name on it, professional enough to fool journalists on deadline. By 3:50, a sports gossip account with 2 million followers ran it. By 4:20, actual news channels were saying the words, "Suspected sabotage attempt at the World Cup" over her face. Her face, from Vanessa's selfie, posted that morning. So proud of this queen. Cora's phone started buzzing and did not stop. Strangers first, then colleagues, then her mother, voice shaking. "Baby, why are they saying this? What is happening?" And Cora stood in a stadium concourse with her father's camera around her neck, watching her own name trend worldwide, attached to a crime that did not exist, feeling the specific vertigo of every person who has ever been chosen by a mob. She did everything right. That's the sickening part. She went straight to the media office to clear it up. And the media office, which had received quiet authoritative word from Crown Hospitality's security division, took one look at her and instead of helping her, revoked her credentials on the spot pending investigation, confiscated her official access, and called security to escort her out. "This is a mistake," Cora kept saying, voice cracking. "Please, check anything. Check my whole camera. I'm a photographer. I won the competition. Ma'am, we need you to come with us." And Cora, who had watched the internet decide she was a criminal in 90 minutes, who could see 2 more guards coming down the corridor talking into radios, who suddenly understood with total clarity that no one in this building was going to believe her, did the thing any of us might do, cornered and terrified in a foreign country. She ran. Wrong choice, tactically. The only choice, humanly. She ran, and the radios lit up, and the chase spilled out toward the pitch just before the 89th minute, and the man in the control room, following Ethan Crawford's script to the letter, put her face on the giant screen above 4 fabricated words and handed her to 90,000 people. Which is where you came in. The booing, the rain of cups, the woman on her knees on the grass. Now let me show you what the cameras missed. Let me show you who else was in that stadium, and why the most feared man in Korea was already moving before Cora's knees hit the ground. Choi Moo-jin had been inside the World Cup for 4 months, and not one person running it knew. Let me introduce him properly, because he's the gravity of everything that follows. He was mid-30s and almost insultingly beautiful, the kind of face that belonged under stage lights, sharp jaw, straight nose, jet black hair that fell over his forehead with a carelessness that took discipline. But nobody who met his eyes remembered the beauty. The eyes were the tell, dark, level, patient, with the flat calm of deep water, eyes that had seen the worst the world does and filed it for later. Ink climbed the side of his neck and covered his forearms, intricate and old, from a world where tattoos are oaths. Publicly, Choi Moo-jin was an international businessman with interests in shipping and private security. Privately, he was the head of Korea's most feared criminal organization, a man whose name was never written down, only lowered voices. And he had come to the World Cup to hunt. 18 months earlier, one of Moo-jin's closest friends, a brother, really, a man named Park Jae-sung who'd stood beside him since they were street kids, had gone undercover into an international network Moo-jin's organization had been tracking. A network moving money, diamonds, and human beings through the bloodstream of global sport. Jae-sung got close enough to learn that everything ran through hospitality, through one company, one CEO, one smiling silver-haired man. Jae-sung's body was found in a harbor 11 days before he could deliver proof. They ruled it an accident. Moo-jin knew better, and Moo-jin did not grieve the way other men grieve. He went silent for 1 month. Then, he liquidated interests, activated networks, and moved on the World Cup like weather moving on a coastline. Patient, total, inevitable. For 4 months, his people had been embedded everywhere. Catering staff, security contractors, motorcycle couriers, cleaning crews. He himself walked the stadium in the one disguise nobody questions on match. Day, a fan. A tall, quiet fan in a black Korea jersey, number 7, blending into a crowd of thousands of jerseys, invisible in plain sight. He had everything except the one thing that mattered, evidence. Crawford was a ghost inside his own machine. No photos, no paper, nothing that touched him directly. Moo-jin's people knew an exchange was happening sometime during this tournament. The case, the documents, the faces. Catch the exchange, and the whole network came down. Miss it, and Jae-sung died for nothing. They missed it. The exchange happened at 10:47 a.m. in the VIP atrium, screened by sponsors and sunlight, angles covered, cameras looped. Crawford's people were flawless. Moo-jin's watchers caught the aftermath, not the act. 4 months of infiltration, and the moment came and went unrecorded. Almost. Because at 3:55 p.m., one of Moo-jin's analysts, monitoring the syndicate's communications the way they'd been doing for months, flagged a sudden internal panic. Crawford's security division had gone loud. Emergency protocols, a reputation kill operation spinning up out of nowhere, aimed at a photographer, a nobody, a freelancer with 1,100 followers. Moo-jin, standing in the concourse crowd in his black number 7, listened to the report through a nearly invisible earpiece, and asked the only question that mattered. Why would Crawford burn a nobody? Silence on the line. Then his analyst, slowly. Because the nobody has something. They're saying, she photographed the atrium this morning, 10:47, and Choi Moo-jin, who had spent 4 months and a fortune and a brother to catch one exchange on camera, turned his head toward the stadium screen just as it lit up with the face of a terrified young woman in a white USA jersey above the words, "Suspected Match Saboteur," and understood the entire situation in one breath. She'd caught it. The nobody had caught the moment his entire operation existed to catch, accidentally, with her father's old camera, and Crawford knew, which meant Crawford's people were minutes from taking the camera and erasing the woman, and 90,000 people were being weaponized as the cover story. "Boss," his second said quietly, appearing at his shoulder. "Orders?" Down on the pitch, Cora Daniels fell to her knees under a rain of garbage, and the sound of 90,000 people hating one innocent woman rolled through the stadium like a tide. Moo-jin watched for exactly 2 seconds. Later, his men would argue about what happened in his face in those 2 seconds. The ones who knew him best said it was Jae-sung, that some door in him opened and his dead friend looked out at one more person the same machine was chewing up in public. "Orders," Moo-jin repeated softly. He handed his second his sunglasses. "Everyone moves. She doesn't get touched." And the most feared man in Korea walked out of the crowd, through the tunnel his people already controlled, and onto the pitch at the World Cup in a black number 7 jersey, in front of 90,000 witnesses and every camera on Earth, breaking 4 months of perfect invisibility for a woman he had never met. Because his brother died, trying to expose what she'd photographed by accident, and because nobody deserved to kneel alone in front of the world. You saw the moment. Now feel it from inside. Cora was on her knees, arms over her head, past crying now into something worse, that final quiet where humiliation stops registering, when the garbage simply stopped landing. She looked up. A man stood over her. Black Korea jersey, number 7, tattoos on his neck. He'd positioned himself with casual precision at exactly the angle that shielded her from the crowd's throwing arm, and he was looking down at her with an expression she'd not seen once in 3 hours. No disgust, no suspicion, just a level, unhurried attention like she was a person. "Stand behind me," he said. "Who are you?" she whispered. The security detail reached them, 6 men now, adrenalized, playing to the cameras. The lead officer grabbed for her. What happened next took under 4 seconds and was replayed 40 million times online by midnight. The man in the number 7 caught the officer's wrist mid-grab, not violently, almost gently, the way you'd catch a door swinging shut, and simply held it, and the officer's face did something complicated, and his knees bent slightly, and the other 5 stopped moving all at once, the way dogs stop when they realize the thing in front of them is not prey. "I won't repeat myself twice in 1 minute," Moo-jin said. "She's under my protection." And then the stadium heard it. The sound came from outside first, a low thunder growing under the crowd noise, engines, many of them. And through the service entrance at the corner of the ground rolled a convoy of black motorcycles, 2 by 2, headlights on, riding calmly onto the perimeter track of a World Cup stadium like it was a parade route. 90,000 people, primed for halftime entertainment, half cheered in confusion. The riders stopped in formation, kickstands down in one synchronized motion. Every rider removed their helmet, men and women, calm, forgettable faces, the kind you'd never look at twice, and every single one of them turned toward the man in the black number 7 jersey standing over Cora Daniels, and bowed. The stadium went quiet in patches, then all at once, that eerie, total quiet of a huge crowd, realizing it does not understand what it's looking at. The commentators stopped talking. The giant screen operator, no longer following Crawford's script, cut helplessly between the bikes and the man on the pitch. Up in the glass boxes, Ethan Crawford stood with a champagne flute going warm in his hand, looking down at a face that wasn't in any file, that had no photographs, that existed only in the whispers of the world he moved money through. And Ethan Crawford, master of the machine, felt the temperature of his blood change. Because everyone legitimate in that stadium was confused, and everyone criminal in that stadium had just recognized Choi Moo-jin. Beside Crawford, a Belgian money launderer set down his drink with shaking hands and said the quietest sentence of the tournament: "Whatever that girl has, give it back." Down on the grass, Moo-jin crouched, bringing himself to Cora's level, unhurried while 90,000 people watched, and picked up her father's camera from the grass with a strange care and held it out to her. "You have something in here that powerful men will kill you for," he said, only for her. "You don't know what it is yet. I do. I've been hunting it for 4 months. His dark eyes held hers. "You have 2 options. Their protection, which ends the moment the cameras look away, or mine, which doesn't end. But you have to choose it. I don't take people. I'm not them." Cora Daniels looked at the camera in his tattooed hands, her father's camera, rescued from the grass. She looked at the crowd that had buried her, the security that had hunted her, the screen that had lied about her. Then she looked at the most dangerous man she'd ever been near, the only person on earth currently standing between her and all of it, and, because she was her father's daughter, because she saw moments, she saw the one thing in his face nobody else in that stadium could. Grief. Old grief, banked like a fire behind the dangerous calm. She took the camera, and she took his hand, and she stood up in front of 90,000 people who'd thrown garbage at her, chin coming level, tear tracks drying. "Okay," she said, "yours. If this story has its hooks in you, do one quick thing. Hit subscribe, because the second half is where every villain in this stadium gets exactly what's coming to them on the biggest screens on earth." Now, the syndicate knows she has the photo, the mafia knows the syndicate knows, and there are 90 minutes of chaos left before anyone can get out of this building. They got her off the pitch through the tunnel Moo-jin's people controlled, into a service corridor deep in the stadium's concrete guts, riders peeling off in choreographed pairs to seal routes behind them, and into a windowless equipment room that 2 of his people swept in silence and sealed. And there, on an overturned cargo crate, with the muffled roar of the restarted match thudding through the ceiling like a heartbeat, Cora Daniels found out what she'd done. "Frame 0847, Moo-jin said. "This morning, the atrium. Show me." Her hands only shook a little. She pulled the frame up on the camera's screen, suits, glass, sunlight, trophy, and Moo-jin's second connected it to a field tablet, and the image bloomed large, and Moo-jin leaned in and went completely still. "There," he said softly. "Enlarge the display case." And the reflection unfolded, like a curse. The curved trophy glass had caught the whole hidden angle of the atrium, the angle Crawford's people had swept for cameras, blind to the one lens that wasn't mounted on a wall, warped but recoverable, the encrypted case, mid-exchange. Faces that appeared in no database, now in perfect focus, a diplomatic license plate that had been retired in 2019, documents with visible seals, staffing visas, dozens of them, fanned in a courier's hand. Moo-jin's second whispered something in Korean that needed no translation. "You see moments," Moo-jin said quietly, almost to himself, staring at the frame. Then, to her, in a voice that had changed, the flatness gone, something underneath it exposed. 18 months ago, my closest friend died trying to photograph what you caught at 10:47 this morning by accident. His name was Park Jae-sung. He was the best man I ever knew, and this network killed him for getting close to what is on your screen right now." Cora's hand rose to her mouth. "The staffing visas," she said slowly, her photographer's brain assembling the reflection. That's people. They're moving people. Through hospitality channels, under the happiest event on earth," Moo-jin straightened. "Your photo is the first physical evidence in existence that touches Ethan Crawford directly. That's why he burned your name in 90 minutes. He wasn't hiding a crime, he was hiding an empire, and you're the only civilian witness alive." The word alive did its work in the room. "So we give it to the police," Cora said. "He owns pieces of the police here, and the moment this file enters any official channel, it dies in a drawer, and so do you." Moo-jin shook his head slowly, and in his dark eyes something was assembling. She watched it build, cold and bright. "No, Crawford buried you in front of 90,000 people. He used their eyes as his weapon." He looked up at the ceiling, at the muffled thunder of the crowd, and for the first time since she'd met him, Choi Moo-jin smiled, and it was the most dangerous thing she'd seen all day. So we're going to use them right back, all 90,000, tonight, before the final whistle. But Ethan Crawford had not built an invisible empire by being slow. Even as Moo-jin's people worked, Crawford's counterattack was already moving. He'd understood the mathematics the instant that motorcycle convoy bowed. This was no longer a reputation problem. It was a war problem, and Crawford had assets for that too. Private mercenaries on the venue security contract, his men, salted through the stadium in official uniforms. He couldn't beat Choi Moo-jin in the dark, but he didn't need to. He needed one camera, one memory card, and one dead witness inside a building he'd legally controlled. Lock the stadium down, Crawford ordered, calm again, the champagne abandoned. Security incident protocol, no one in or out until the match ends. Kill their transmission options, jam the media uplinks, take the broadcast center, and find them. They're in my building. Every corridor in this place answers to me. And Vanessa Blake, still in the VIP suite, still imagining she was a valued partner, watched Crawford's men rack weapons out of equipment cases, and finally, far too late, understood what she'd carried into this room. She backed toward the door. Crawford didn't even turn his head. "Miss Blake stays," he said pleasantly. "She's a witness now, too." The color left her face like water from a sink. Down in the concrete dark, Moo-jin's earpiece delivered the situation in 3 sentences. Stadium locked, uplinks jammed, armed teams sweeping inward. He listened without expression, then looked at Cora, who had heard enough of it, and at her father's camera in her hands. "He's cut every path to the outside world," Moo-jin said. "The internet, the media center, the broadcast trucks. The file can't leave the stadium." And Cora Daniels, 24 years old, hunted, slandered, exhausted, surprised the most feared man in Korea for the second time that day. "Then we don't send it out," she said. Her eyes had gone somewhere else. Her father's voice was in her ear. "The 10 sees the whole field, Cora. We send it up, the stadium screens. The big boards run on an internal production network. It's separate from the broadcast uplink. It's how they show replays when the satellite feed hiccups. My credentials are revoked, but my camera isn't." She held it up. "This model has a live transmission mode. Photographers use it to file straight to editors. If someone gets me hard access to the production booth, a cable, 30 seconds, I can put frame 0847 and everything in it on 2 screens 90 feet tall in front of 90,000 people and every phone in the building. He jammed the internet." She almost laughed, hollow and fierce. "He can't jam eyeballs." The equipment room was silent for a beat. "Jae-sung would have liked you," Moo-jin said finally. He turned to his second. "The production booth is above the north tunnel. Between it and us are 3 corridors of his men." He rolled the sleeves of the black number 7 jersey up over his forearm tattoos, and the last softness left his face like a light going off. "Clear them." What happened under that stadium during the last 20 minutes of the match became a legend that security staff still argue about, because almost none of it was ever caught on camera. Crawford had blinded his own building, and Moo-jin's people fought like men who'd trained their whole lives for a blind building. It moved through the service tunnels in surges, motorcycle riders running interference through underground parking, headlights slicing dark concrete, drawing mercenary teams into dead-end chases, hand-to-hand in maintenance corridors. Crawford's contractors were professionals, but Moo-jin's people were believers, and there is no contract on earth that fights like grief. Moo-jin himself moved at the spear point with an economy that was almost terrible to watch, never hurried, never cruel, putting men down like he was closing accounts, the black number 7 flashing under emergency lights. And through the middle of it ran Cora Daniels, flanked, shielded, her father's camera against her chest, running the gauntlet of the worst day of her life toward the only exit that had ever existed. The truth, told big. They broke into the production corridor with 6 minutes left in the match. 2 of Crawford's men held the booth door. Moo-jin dealt with the first before the man finished turning. The second landed one blow, opening a cut over Moo-jin's eyebrow before joining his colleague on the floor. Moo-jin wiped the blood with the back of his tattooed hand, kicked the door, and held it open, breathing barely elevated. 30 seconds, he said to Cora. "Make it count." The booth operators had bolted. Cora dropped into the chair, hands flying. Hard line from her camera into the production switcher, transmission mode, file queue, frame 0847, then the enhanced enlargements Moo-jin's tech had processed. The case, the faces, the plate, the visas fanned like a poker hand of human lives. Her finger hovered over the take button. For 1 second, she thought about what happens to nobodies who do this to empires. Then, she thought about her father, who saved 8 months of wages for a camera because his daughter saw moments. And she thought, "See this one, Daddy." She pressed it. Above, the match was in its final minutes. The crowd, one long roar, and then both giant screens flickered, and the roar stumbled and died into a vast rustling confusion. Frame 0847 filled the boards, 90 feet tall. The atrium, the suits, the trophy glass, then the enlargements one by one, clean and merciless. The encrypted case, mid-hand-off, the faces, the plate, the fanned visas, with a caption Cora had typed with shaking hands in the booth, plain and unadorned, the caption of a photographer, not a propagandist. Taken 10:47 this morning. VIP Atrium, Crown Hospitality. They are moving people through your World Cup. This is why they lied to you about me. C. Daniels. 90,000 phones came up at once. 90,000 cameras recording the screens, uploading on 90,000 private connections that no jammer on earth could touch. The truth escaping the locked stadium through the pockets of the very crowd Crawford had weaponized 6 hours earlier. The mob he'd aimed at Cora Daniels became, in 40 seconds, the largest simultaneous witness pool in the history of crime. In the VIP boxes, it happened in full view of the cameras that had swung, hungry, toward the glass. Ethan Crawford's face on the stadium screens picture-in-picture, going from silver-haired composure to something gray and hunted as men around him physically stepped away, distancing themselves in real time for the lenses. He turned to leave the suite and found the doorway filled, not by police, not yet, but by 3 calm, forgettable people in staff uniforms who did not move, because Choi Moo-jin's final order had been the simplest one of the night. Nobody leaves that box before the cameras are done with them. The police, when they fought their way through the pandemonium 20 minutes later, found the world's most respected hospitality CEO sealed in a glass room 90 feet above a stadium full of people watching the evidence of his empire on loop, along with, on a chair in the corner, sobbing into her phone's dead screen, a famous influencer whose copied files, panicked messages, and afternoon meeting with Crawford were about to make her the most well-documented accessory in sports history. Vanessa Blake had wanted, more than anything, to be part of the biggest story at the World Cup. She got it. And down on the pitch, where it had all started, where a woman had knelt in the garbage of 90,000 people's hatred 6 hours before, the screens cut, at last, to the live feed of Cora Daniels emerging from the North Tunnel, exhausted, tear-streaked, her father's camera around her neck, a tall man in a bloodied black number 7 jersey walking half a step behind her like a shadow that had chosen her. The stadium, that same stadium, rose. Not booing. 90,000 people, ashamed and awed in the same breath, stood and roared for the woman they'd tried to bury at sunset, and the sound rolled down over Cora Daniels like weather, like tide, like the exact same storm as before with its whole heart reversed. And Cora stood at the mouth of the tunnel and cried and let them see it, because her father had taught her that the game was never about who the crowd loved. It was about who kept playing. The unraveling took months, but the shape of it was set that night. The syndicate came apart the way Moo-jin had always planned, except in daylight, on every front page, powered by an image no lawyer could suppress, because 400 million people had already seen it. Trafficking channels exposed, victims found and freed. That number, the only one that mattered, climbing week after week. Crawford's empire, strip-mined by investigators from 9 countries. Crawford himself in custody, his face now the world's shorthand for a very old lesson, the smiling man at the top of the machine. Vanessa Blake's 4 million followers watched her arraignment live. Her last post stayed up for a long time, frozen, a museum piece, so proud of this queen. Cora's name was cleared so publicly, so enormously, that the correction became bigger than the lie. a thing that almost never happens, and happened for her. And the photo, frame 0847, went where the great photographs go, front pages, congressional hearings, and finally a gallery wall under soft lights with a small placard bearing the name the world had given it, the photo that stopped the World Cup conspiracy. Cora Daniels, winner, World Press Photo of the Year. The exhibition opening was in the spring. Cora stood in a quiet gallery in a good dress, her mother beaming near the wine table, strangers telling her what her eye meant to them, and she was happy, truly, and something in her kept listening for engines. Because he had vanished, of course. That night, in the chaos between one police cordon and the next, the man in the black number 7 and his riders, and every trace of them, gone like they'd been a rumor the stadium told itself. The investigators' reports contained a hole shaped exactly like Choi Moo-jin, and no one who knew anything was saying anything. For months, the only proof Cora had that he'd existed at all was the world's endless replays of 4 seconds of caught wrist on a football pitch, and the empty place on her shoulder where her father's camera should have hung. Because in that final scramble under the stadium, the camera had been lost. Taken, dropped, swallowed by the night, gone. She'd filed the photos, the evidence had lived. But the camera itself, the 8 months of wages camera, the gravestone she could touch, gone, and she had grieved it like a second funeral and told no one why. She was saying goodnight to the gallery director when she heard it. A motorcycle, low, unhurried, arriving like an outcome. Cora walked out onto the museum steps in the spring dark, and there he was, leaning against a black bike at the curb like he had all the time ever printed, in a plain black jacket now, no jersey. The tattoos just visible above his collar, the cut over his eyebrow healed to a thin, pale line. Handsome as a verdict, watching her with those dark, level eyes that she had thought about quietly every single day since the World Cup, in a way she had also told no one. "You're impossible to thank," she said, coming down the steps. "You know that? You saved my life on live television and then evaporated. There are documentaries about you. They call you the unidentified man." "I've been called worse." The corner of his mouth moved. "You've been busy. World Press Photo of the Year. Jae-sung would say you owed him a co-credit." "I'd have given him one." She stopped in front of him. "I put his name in my acceptance speech. Park Jae-sung. Did you—" "I heard it," Moo-jin said quietly, and for a moment the level eyes weren't level at all. Everyone he loved heard it. Then he reached back, unclipped something from the bike's case, and held it out to her with both hands, with a care that had nothing casual in it. Her father's camera, battered, familiar. The strap her dad had repaired with fishing line still repaired with fishing line, whole, home. Cora took it the way you take a returned heart, and couldn't speak and didn't try to, and Moo-jin let the silence be what it was. "How?" she finally managed. "It was gone. I looked. Your people looked. It was gone. How did you possibly?" And Choi Moo-jin, the most feared man in Korea, the shadow that had chosen her, smiled, the real one, the one maybe 6 living people had seen, and swung a leg over the bike and held out his hand for her to choose, the way he had on the grass in front of 90,000 people. "I told you," he said. "Once you're under my protection, nothing of yours stays lost." She looked at the hand. She saw the moment. She took it. If this one got you, the pitch rescue, the screens lighting up with the truth, the camera coming home, tell me in the comments which second hit hardest and subscribe with the bell on, because more full-length stories like this are coming and I'd hate for you to miss the next one. Somewhere out there, every crowd that ever booed an innocent woman is one photograph away from standing up for her instead. See you in the next one.